Hi, this is Dawn Grimshaw with Omaha Home Pros team at Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate, and I'm here today with Erin with Tax Help. Erin, do you want to tell them a little bit about yourself?
Well, good morning. My name is Erin Anderson. I am one of the owners of Tax Help here in Omaha. We have been serving the Omaha community for over 50 years and have been currently trying to keep ourselves abreast to all of the continually changing tax laws and all of the additional stimulus money that has been coming from the federal government, additional small business loans and things like that. So with the extension of the tax filing deadline, we are still here serving our clients who need to continue to get their taxes done until July 15th. So
that sounds like you're busy.
We are busy. We are busier than we typically would be this time of year. Typically, we're done April 15th.
Right.
If people file an extension, it would typically go till October 15th. But with the extension of the deadline to July 15th, we are all still in the office preparing taxes.
But if you were somebody who took advantage of, like, say, the PPP program for small businesses, so now you've probably received your money. What happens as far as the forgiveness portion of that, and is any portion of that taxable?
A variety of government programs have kind of been offered in that March, April, May timeframe. So one of them that you mentioned is the PPP, the Payroll Protection Plan, where a small business owner, which is defined as 500 employees or less, could apply for a loan from a bank with the ultimate goal that that loan would be forgiven. If it was spent on what the SBA or Small Business Association wanted you to spend it on. Now, originally, the PPP amount of the loan was based off of 2.5 times monthly payroll. Okay, I know. Right. So I've already lost you. No, just kidding. So let's say hypothetically we'll work through an example. So if your monthly payroll was $40,000. Your potential PPP loan would be $100,000, 2.5 times monthly payroll. So 40 times 2, 80, plus another half is 100. Okay. So originally in the regulations when they came out, when those funds became available to you, i.e. in your bank account, you had 8 weeks to spend that money. That money needed to be spent on 75% payroll and 25% other items. So in my example, $75,000 had to be spent on payroll, paying employees. The remaining 25% could be spent on very specific things: mortgage obligations, if you had a loan or a small business loan, if you had to pay your monthly payment, rent, if you were renting space, utilities, so lights, air, things like that. It was 75%, 25%. Okay, and that money had to be spent over an 8-week period. Now, just recently, within the last couple of weeks, those parameters have changed. So the 8 weeks has now gone to 24 weeks, and the 75% has gone to 60%. So after your applicable period for which you're spending the money that they gave you the loan on, you as a small business owner now has the obligation as part of the loan to apply for forgiveness. So now you're going to go to your bank and you're going to apply another application for forgiveness, at which point you provide all of the appropriate documentation to support what you spent the money on. And that's going to be everything from, payroll records to a copy of your lease, to your utility bills, to all of those types of things, right? To support now the 60% and the 40%. So once you as a small business owner have applied for forgiveness from the bank has the opportunity to review and say, yep, everything looks good, is in place, you've attested that you spent it on what you should have spent it on, we're going to forgive the loan.
So is that at the sole discretion of the bank?
Now the bank
right?
has to apply to the SBA.
Okay.
for the funds. Okay, so the bank has kind of become now the middle person, right? So the bank gave you the loan. The bank will indicate forgiveness of the loan, but that process has to be approved then by the SBA.
Right.
So again, the 8-week period in the initial regulations is here. Like people who received those initial loans initially, their 8-week period is over. Now technically, they don't have to apply for forgiveness because now it's been extended to 24. So the banks are currently waiting for their process and how they submit for forgiveness to the SBA. So we're there ready for the process, but I'm not sure the banks are ready for the forgiveness process because the SBA hasn't articulated to them that final process. Like I don't think we're there yet because the 8 weeks has gone to the 24 weeks. So again, I do think that the bank will have the discretion on determining whether or not the funds were appropriately spent, which is really, as a small business owner, really what you're concerned with, right? Now, again, if the money wasn't spent in that, originally 75-25, now 60-40, there could potentially be a part of the loan that's not forgiven. Okay, so in my $100,000 example, now you needed to spend $60,000 on payroll. If you didn't do that, and you only spent, we'll do simple math, $20,000 on payroll, you potentially now have $40,000 that would not be forgiven. Well, now it's just a loan. So now you have a loan with your bank that you'll have to pay back as any other loan obligation with, I believe, like 1% interest over, I think now the extended, it used to be, the original reg went through 2021, December 31st of 2021. Now I believe it's 5 years. So again, it wouldn't be the end of the world if you didn't spend that money on what you were supposed to spend it on. Obviously, you should.
Right.
But if you don't, now you just have a loan obligation. So we haven't had anybody go through the forgiveness process yet. So I don't know how specifically that is working and specifically what types of information they're going to need. The SBA has put that out, but no one's actually submitted yet. So that's going to be kind of a work in process. And again, the bank, when you apply for forgiveness, has 60 days to forgive, and then the SBA has another 120 days to forgive. Or not forgive really, but to give the bank the funds. So there's going to be potentially a 5-month window of whether or not your original PPP loan would be forgiven. So it will be a while that we will be continuing to, and who knows, it might change again. We don't know.
Yeah, everything changes.
Right. We were at that 8-week mark, and literally that Friday, it went to 24 weeks. So again, we're trying to stay abreast to all of those changes from a tax perspective.
Forgiven,
yes.
Do I owe taxes on that?
You do not. So if it's forgiven, so from a tax perspective, the original loan amount is not considered income.
Okay.
So when that loan is forgiven, the expenses that you paid with that loan amount are not deductible business expenses. Basically, at the end of the day, it washes.
Okay.
The net, if it's 100% forgiven, you don't have the income, but you don't have the corresponding expense. It's net neutral to you.
Okay, as long as it's net neutral.
It's net neutral. It's net neutral. So again, if you received $100,000.
And I did not get $100,000.
Yeah, not many people did. No. And then there's people who got 10 million. So I'm like, how did that work?
Yeah, is that really a small business?
Is that a small business? So
yeah,
anyway,
no.
So let's say 10,000. So if we back it down and say if a small business owner received a $10,000 PPP, and they turned around and wrote themselves over that 8-week period, let's go with the original, 2 checks for $5,000.
Correct. Okay.
Okay. and you submit all the forgiveness to the bank, everything gets approved and you're forgiven from the loan, and it's nothing. So now that $10,000 loan is not income.
Okay.
But the two $5,000 checks you paid to yourself are not business expenses either.
Okay.
So the net impact on your profit and loss is zero, is nothing. It's net neutral.
Okay.
So
clear as mud.
Clear as mud. I know. Again, it's going to be, you're going to need to know as a small business owner, obviously, what those numbers look like when we go to prepare the 2020 taxes, because it is going to be confusing. It is going to be very confusing for people. So, and then if it's not all forgiven, so hypothetically, you got your $10,000 loan, they only forgave $8,000 of it. So now you've got $2,000 of income, but now you have a loan that you are paying back, which is now a business expense. So the $2,000 is income, but then you have the interest potentially on the loan that you get to use as a business expense.
Okay.
So you are going to need to know
that
what those numbers are.
That'll be a great deduction.
At 1%, I know exactly. That's just it. It's a great, from that perspective, it's a nice loan.
It's good, yeah.
But hopefully, most people in the Omaha area who are small businesses got a reasonable, a reasonable amount of money. They spent the money on exactly what they were supposed to spend it on it, which has been our experience with our clients. And it's forgiven, and we go down the road.
Yeah. So if you are a business owner and you did, for instance, the stimulus check, you get the stimulus check, is that taxable income, or how does that affect your taxes?
Okay, so there's a couple different parts. There's a couple different stimuluses, for one. So the first one that was coming out, the first ones came out, I want to say mid-April, which was if you'd filed your 2019 tax return, it was based on your 2019 tax return. If you hadn't filed your 2019 tax return, it was based on 18. We don't know what the matrix is that the Internal Revenue Service has used, how they went about it, what their order of, we don't know. It's our best guess. So that was based, that stimulus money was based on your adjusted gross income. Potentially, you would have gotten, if you filed a joint return with your husband, you got $1,200, your spouse got $1,200, and for any dependent children under 17, you got an additional $500. So that's one stimulus.
Right.
Now, that phases in and out based on adjusted gross income. So some people may have gotten that total amount, others got a phased in amount. And again, there's a mathematical calculation that decreases by $5 for every $100. But again, we won't get into that. So anyway, you either got $1,200 or some number or nothing. So there you go. So that, again, there was some confusion around that initially. Did you have to file? Did you not have to file? If you had direct deposit, could you put your money in? All of that kind of good stuff. Generally speaking, they were going to go direct deposit if they had that information. If not, then they were going to send you a check.
Right.
Then those checks got turned into a Visa card. So people were receiving like a debit card in the mail, which some people threw away. They thought it was actually a scam, which I agree. I'm not sure I would have kept mine. So again, that's kind of evolved as that whole stimulus. So that's one stimulus that is really technically an advance tax credit on your 2020 tax return.
So it does show up on your tax return.
It will show up on your 2020 tax return as an advance tax credit.
So how does that work? Like if you were going to get a refund, do you get $1,200 less now?
No.
Okay.
It's an advance credit. So it's not taxable income.
Okay.
It would be an advance credit you received that would be similar to child tax credit or the other dependent credit. So I hate to say completely free and clear because they could change the rules too on that, but it will be disclosed on your 2020 tax return. It should not have a tax impact on your 2020 tax return.
Okay. Well, that's good. No taxes is good.
There you go. So that's one stimulus. Now, the other stimulus that people are receiving is as it pertains to unemployment. Mm-hmm. So self-employed people, for the first time with the CARES Act, which again was confusing because typically self-employed people are not eligible for unemployment.
Right.
Because they don't pay unemployment. So that was kind of a mind shift as well for people, because you have self-employed people who don't pay unemployment, mm-hmm. who would really never collect unemployment, encouraged to file for unemployment.
Right.
So it was very confusing for people because they've never been asked those questions because it's outside of their complete lived experience. So for those people who applied for and received unemployment, unemployment is taxable income. In addition to unemployment, you also had the opportunity to receive an additional $600 a week as a stimulus. Mm-hmm. That $600 is also taxable income.
Okay.
So if you have been receiving unemployment and the stimulus as it pertains to unemployment, that income is taxable income in 2020. And that's something, again, that will be confusing because historically unemployment doesn't send you that information. Mm-hmm. You have to go online and get it.
Okay.
So.
Well, that's going to be really confusing for people.
Right.
Make sure you go online and get it.
Make sure you go online and get it.
If you are on unemployment at any point in time.
Thank you, Dawn. Yes. Be sure you remember that at the end of the year.
Your accountant will thank you.
Right. That you have that because that income is taxable income. So that, again, will be something that hopefully in January and February of 2021, this is long a distant thing, right? Yes. So again, people will be, back to work, and when you're asking, you just have to remember that all of these, hundreds and thousands and millions of people who've collected unemployment and stimulus, that component is going to be taxable income. So.
Okay.
Sorry.
No. It's not your fault.
Exactly.
It's still income. So.
But they could also change that too. So
it's better than not having gotten paid during that time for
exactly.
those people who were out of work. So
right.
I'm glad
Hair salons, manicurists, all those things
mm-hmm.
were literally they were completely closed. So they had the opportunity to file for unemployment, file for the stimulus, file for the file for all those things. Mm-hmm. There was a backlog, so they may not have gotten anything for 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and then all of a sudden all of it starts coming in. So, and that's overwhelming. It's mm-hmm. overwhelming for anyone. So again, I would just encourage you to work with whomever prepares your taxes, because again, it's kind of a moving target. And so we have been fielding lots and lots of calls
I'm sure you
as
have.
It pertains to that.
I'm sure you have.